Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So in this game, we will be playing none other than Runinja. So let's get to it. E4, C6. I'm pretty sure you've seen this in our encounter with Runinja a couple of times, that Runinja likes playing the Caro-Kann defense. So after D3, D5. So this is what is called the Breyer variation. And here I could play knight d2, right? Here I could play knight f3. There are many ways of playing it, but I decided to play the move queen to e2, saying, if you take, I'm going to take with a pawn, and I'm going to play g3, bishop g2, knight f3, c3, and sort of keep this not very active, but sort of developing structure. So after e5, I thought this move was kind of odd in a sense, because after e5 there's c takes, or e takes d5, my bad, and all of a sudden this queen targets the pawn, right? And usually in the Caro-Kann you don't exactly want to lose one of your center pawns. So what I would recommend instead is the move e6, solidify, or the move e6, then bishop d6, and then knight to e7. Get the pieces out, keep the solid triangle, and rock on with good vibes. So after e5, now I have e takes d5, and all of a sudden, queen takes d5, and now there's knight to f3. Keeping an eye on this pinned pawn, right? Bishop to d6, I play knight to c3. I could have also played d4 here, which is a good move as well. There might be bishop g4 ideas, so that could be a move. I played knight c3 just to get the queen, right? And after queen a5, now I play the move bishop to d2, because what I want to do is I want to bring the knight to e4, make a discovery on a5, maybe take on d6, and queen takes e5 if possible. So after knight to c3, queen to a5, so I kind of felt like queen to e6 probably had the best move here, because after d4 all of a sudden, there's no longer a pin because the queen is in the way, right? So if d4, if black wants to, black can play e takes d4. But after knight takes, queen takes, bishop takes, you can sort of see that white is very much up development. So the reason why black's evaluation is like plus 0.6 in favor of white is because white has much more development. So even though the material is the same, the number of pieces developed that white has just simply shifts that evaluation bar up to above 0. So instead, in the game, queen to a5 happened, and then bishop d2. And here I would have recommended probably bringing some other piece in. I don't know. It could be like knight to. It's hard to say what to address here, given that white's threat is knight to e4. So maybe in a quick game I would play queen to c7 and try to hold on to this pawn. But the thing is, after queen to c7, white has the move d4, and it gets really tricky because this pawn is still pinned, right? And if f6 happens, well, knight e4 could happen, castle and queenside could happen, so there are all these possibilities. So after bishop d2, f6, and now I play knight to e4, I remove the bishop, and now I play d4. I'm looking toward this pawn again, knight d7, bishop to c3, just looking for the pawn, knight to e7, and here I play the move rook d1. And to be honest, in the game, I was intending to play knight to c4. So here's what I saw after rook to d1. It was like a 30-second think. I said rook to d1, queen to c7, queen to c4, knight to d5, and rook takes d5. And this is what I only saw, because after knight to b6, there is rook to d7 check. Takes, takes, and white is completely winning, right? Rook e8, f4. White is completely winning. So that is what I saw, and I was like, yes, let's do that. But I didn't see the move knight d5, and all of a sudden, I went into a very long think, because in fact, this went from a position that was really good, like I should have played knight c4 here, like I told you I was going to, and I should have knight c4, knight e3, maybe try to castle queenside safely. But now after rook d1, I cannot castle queenside, and at the same time I can't castle kingside because my bishop and my queen are very awkwardly placed. So after knight d5, you can see the evaluation bar start shifting to black's sort of comfortable side. So here I play knight c4, and my goal is to get this knight to e3 to sort of dodge all the threats coming in from that rook to e8. Queen to g6, knight to e3. So additionally here I could have also played queen to d3, but I just wasn't really sure about rook to e8 and whether I would be safe or not. So for example, queen to d3, rook to e8, knight to e3, and let's say black played something like queen to f7. I didn't know. Maybe there was like knight to f4 stuff, knight to f6. I didn't really feel comfortable, you know? So I was like, no, we can't move the queen again. So knight to e8, or not knight to e8, knight to e3, rook to e8, and now bishop d4. And to be honest, I was very, very uncomfortable here. I hated my position. I regretted playing rook to d1, and I just really wanted to take it back and play knight to c4. But here there's the move knight 7 to f6, just saying I'm going to put more pressure with bishop g4 or knight g4, right? I want to put more pressure on this e3 knight, and that should be the main goal of black here. But after playing knight to f8, I sort of had a glimpse at saying, what if I just play king d2, right? What if, is there any consequence to that? Like if knight e6 happens, does this bishop have enough squares to survive? And I said after king d2, knight to e6, I was like, I don't know where this bishop goes, right? And to be honest, this actually works. The computer says it works due to the move king to c1. That I didn't see. So, obviously now you know why I didn't choose king to d2. But I played queen to c4 instead. And this, my friends, came from like a 7-minute think with a bunch of other games still going. To be honest, I was totally in trouble here. I didn't see any better move. I I told you I briefly looked at king d2 and it didn't work, so I passed on it. I also looked at queen d2, but I thought about what happens if bishop to g4, right? I just didn't know. So then I said, you know what? To avoid all that, I'm going to play queen to c4. I'm going to pin this knight. And this was probably one of those moves that I regretted as well. Bishop to e6, and all of a sudden there's a discovery incoming. So I was like, oh, no, no, no. Queen to a4, b5. Queen to a3, bishop to g4. So at this point in the game, I was like, I'm dead lost, so I'm going to try to see if our friend Runinja makes any mistakes and sees if he can break through. So after bishop g4, I play bishop to d3. I want to create some counter threats on this queen. I want to develop my pieces. So after queen to g5, I said, I really don't see any way rook d2 is going to work because there's knight to f4, and all of a sudden if castles, there's going to be a very large threat gathering on g2. So I played castles. I said, please, please take my rook. But here our friend Runinja played bishop to h3, and here's where it turned the tide. Now it's not very obvious how I turned the tide, but I'm going to show you. It comes through a series of tactics. f4, knight takes f4, rook takes f4. Now, what I should have done is I should have played the move queen to c5. That is what I didn't see, and that would have been a really good move. But I played rook takes f4 instead, saying, if you play queen takes f4, I was thinking g takes h3, and then I said, I am 2 pieces for a rook. And I was like, great, this is great. But I missed the move knight to e6, and I am completely lost after knight to e6. Right? What kind of move can you do? Queen b3, king h8. I mean, there's no way of saving these two guys, because there are 2 attackers and technically maybe 1, but 0 direct defenders, so it's not working in my favor. So what our friend Runinja should have done is queen takes f4. Right after g takes h3, don't go queen takes d4 because of bishop takes h7, and don't go rook takes e3 because of bishop takes h7. So it's a very interesting way to sort of get out of this mess. So here, our friend Runinja went with something looking even more nasty. Rook takes e3. But in fact, this is, I would say, it's hard to say this is a mistake. I mean, it was tactical instinct, remove the defender of the checkmate, so I have to play rook f2 here. And after rook to e6, I said, you know what, I want to get rid of this guy. So I play bishop takes h7. To be honest, I could have also played rook d to f1 and went for this knight on f8, since my queen is also attacking it. So that could have been an option as well. But I just was low on time here. I couldn't take much, so I took the goodies I could. Rook d8, rook to f1. If you play c5, I have rook to f5 interfering with that. Queen to d2, bishop takes, and if you take on c2, I solidify my bishop with the move b4. I say, you know what, if you want to take on a2, be my guest. But I'm going to start creating some sort of kingside attack, and I want you to be watching out. So rook to e1 happened, and I said, wow, you want to trade? Okay. I'm going to play a3, and if you trade, we can trade. Knight to g5, but now there's queen to h5. Rook to e5 looks harmless, attacking, just defending the knight, but there's rook f8 checkmate. So this was a crazy game, and let's sum it up. Well, the opening was a bit chaotic for black because handling this e5 pawn was extremely difficult. The first remark is queen to e6 is better than a5, and then afterwards, this is all normal castling, and rook to d1 was a terrible move on my part. I mean, I want to criticize myself, so I have the right to, and after knight to d5, I mean, Runinja just played beautifully, exerting pressure, finding ways to maneuver the knight to the right squares. Maybe knight f6 was better. It's hard to say. I mean, I was playing horribly. I was just moving the queen around, and I got lucky. Bishop h3, f4, and I got lucky that our friend Runinja didn't take on f4 with the queen. Instead, rook takes e3 happened, and after rook f2, I was slowly crawling back into the game with all my threats, and this move knight to g5 sealed the deal for me because after queen to h5, a double attack happened, all things went down, mate came on the board, and guess what? I'll see you next time.